I think going into it, I think we have to assume macro headwinds going into early 2026. Do you think we're in a bear market? But I could see it potentially being over as early as May.
What is the reasoning?
You can never convince people to get in when they should, because like it's not cool to buy crypto when the prices are low, and so they'll ignore you. And then eventually they listen to you. They'll listen to you at a peak, and then they'll blame you after that. Markets humble everyone. The worst thing is if you're wrong, doubling down when you are wrong. That's the worst thing.
Our favorite Ben Cowen is here with me at Binance Blockchain Week. He is the founder of Into the Cryptoverse and one of the smartest people I know.
I appreciate that, but I'm not.
People call you the fortune teller because a lot of times you come to our show and you say, hey, this is going to happen. Last time you said it was November 14th. Something around that, and then whatever you predicted actually happened.
Okay. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, I mean, I think I've been on your
Death
channel.
Cross.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of times I've been on I think I was on your channel maybe in early 2025 as well, because we talked a little bit about like Solana, Bitcoin,
Right.
and I was talking about how it was going to go down, like Solana's Bitcoin valuation was going to go down. It's kind of like following Ethereum's Bitcoin valuation. But yeah, I mean, like it's really interesting time in the market because people are like, is it a bull market? Is it a bear market?
It's a bear market.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. But I think it's very similar to prior bear markets in the sense that it's like we're topping in Q4 of the post-halving year like we always do. Q4 2013, 2017, 2021 were all the peaks, and then we had bear markets. But what's different is that we topped on apathy rather than euphoria, and that's more similar to 2019. And what's also similar to 2019 is social interest was really, really low. It was when quantitative tightening came to an end. In 2019, Bitcoin topped out a couple of months before QT ended, and now it looks like it's doing the same thing. It topped in October, QT ends in December. It's really reminiscent of those market conditions. And so when you have a non-euphoric top, what it means is that you don't have, so from euphoric tops, you have all the retail that comes in and buys the top. And then they usually lead to these like brutal bear markets, right? Because they're selling.
Yeah.
When you have a non-euphoric top, like 2019, you still have a bear market, but it's more like a slower progression of people just kind of like slowly giving up, is what it was back then. And what happened was, and what's really interesting is that like some people out there, we just did a talk about, you're talking about content creation, and someone was talking about to me, they're like, is now a good time to start a YouTube channel? And I'm like, well, in 2019, when I started my YouTube channel, these were basically these same market conditions. QT was about to end. No, Bitcoin had just topped out. No one cared about crypto. Retail was not here. No one cared. And I started my channel and no one cared for a while. And then monetary policy changed and then everything changed. I mean, I do think we're in a bear market, but I could see it, potentially being over as early as May. Realistically, I think you have to go into it assuming it very well easily could take until next October as well, because all prior bear markets have been 1 year, with the exception of sort of that intermediate bear market we had in 2019. So I think going into it, I think we have to assume macro headwinds going into early 2026, though I do think there will be a bear market rally in early 2026.
What is the reasoning?
So normally, because think about it like this, most people went into Q4 assuming we would have this like massive blow off top with an alt season, and so that didn't happen, right? We had a new all-time high, but it was not really a massive blow off top, and I think from there, people gave up, right? People have been selling, they're like, all right, the cycle's over. After you have about 3 months of selling in a bear market, usually you have a counter trend rally. So if you look at 2021, we had November, December, and January were all red months. And then in February and March, we had a bear market rally back up to the 200-day moving average and or the 50-week moving average. So I think right now you're seeing kind of a lot of selling based on people just being like, all right, cycle's over, And then I think in early 2026, you're going to have all those people that are going to sell. They're going to be gone in the short term. You're going to be left with the people that are holding on. And I think it will lead to a bear market rally in early 2026. But my guess is it's going to be a lower high by Bitcoin. You could have some divergent higher highs on some alts though. Like it's possible there are scenarios where certain cryptocurrencies could go to new all-time highs, even though Bitcoin might put in a lower high. But we're not at that point yet. Like I don't think we're in that rally just yet. But we're in a rally right now as I speak to you because we're back at 93K. But I don't think this is the, I'm not really convinced that this yet is the big rally to take us back up above, what people think is possible. I think in the short term, people have really given up. I think you're going to see some short-term moves back to the downside. But I do think you'll have that, and you don't really have it. You ask me like why, right? But I mean, you don't always have to have a reason. Sometimes, if everyone starts betting on the downside, then usually there's just a squeeze back up to the upside, and that also happened in 2019 as well. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think you have downside. You have a counter-trend rally into early 2026. It's going to make people think that the cycle's not over. And then we're going to have another drop kind of going into the summer. And then that could be the low. Like I'm open-minded to that being the low, but we'll have to see what's going on at the time and see how far down Bitcoin even is by that point. So
I find it very interesting that you look at numbers all day, but then you're like, okay, I want to guess what people would think when they see the numbers, and I want to create a strategy around that. But how do you know if your guess is correct?
I don't. I mean, like I'm telling people what I think's going to happen. I always hedge. I mean, like even though I think we're in a bear market, I still do own like both Bitcoin and Ethereum. And like there does exist a scenario where Ethereum goes to another all-time high. Like it's possible for that to happen. But like I think it's important to have a plan. Like you like I think what I think, and I will base a lot of my strategy around that. But I always hedge in case I'm wrong, because sometimes I do get things wrong, and like when I get it wrong, I don't want to be completely on the wrong side of the market, right? Like having some Bitcoin if we're in a bear market protects me from potentially falling into the trap of buying into a bear market rally, right? Like if we have a bear market rally in early 2026 and I don't own any Bitcoin, it would be easy to then want to FOMO back in at the next lower high. But if I have some, then I don't really feel like I'm missing out on anything. So I'm like, all right, well, I have some. I can enjoy the ride.
Do you ever look at the news?
Sometimes, but I don't really base my decisions on the news. Like I think it's interesting to know what's happening, but I don't really think the markets are often moving in an ongoing way based on the news. Like I mean, obviously, if Trump comes out and tweets something about the crypto markets, like it can have a short-term effect, like on that minute candle.
But you
right?
don't care about that.
I don't care about that because a lot of that stuff is just fleeting. Like no one even cares a few days later. Like no, people forget and they move on. I don't really think that stuff matters as much.
What about all the DAT companies? People are spreading FUD on all the Bitcoin treasury companies. Does that even matter?
I mean, I think it's nice narratives to sort of justify like why we can have a bear market, right? But the reality is we always have bear markets every 4 years.
Yeah.
Like it's just like, yeah, we have bear markets every 4 years because people get greedy. Some of the treasury companies get greedy. They end up buying the top, and their cost basis might be over 100K. Who knows? And the way the market punishes them is by going down and punishing them for being so late. And the people that weren't late can stomach the drawdowns. The people that came in this late are going to be punished, and like not all of them are going to survive. Some of them will go down, and that will be part of the reason for why people say the bear market's happening. But there's always a reason, and the winds just change. Like the music doesn't go on forever. The music turns off sometimes, and when it turns off, the zombie companies go to zero, and it's a good thing because then it helps those people that work for those companies to then go work for other companies that are more beneficial to society. So I mean, when the markets go down, it just allows the companies that are doing well to survive and thrive long term, and it gets rid of all the other froth.
We were talking earlier on stage about your content creation journey, and I find it really, really interesting. You said you were intentionally making boring thumbnails when you first started. What does that even mean?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to do the clickbait stuff,
Yeah.
essentially. I also wanted to attract people that weren't attracted to really clickbaity stuff, because I know that clickbait stuff is fleeting and that people want to feel like they're not being sold something constantly. And I just wanted to provide like a boring opinion, you know? And I was like, all right, I'll match my opinion, my boring videos with boring thumbnails. I also just was too lazy to go and find someone to make thumbnails for me. And so the easiest thing to do was just to make the thumbnail be either just a picture of the chart I was going to be talking about, or yeah, maybe just putting the title on there in bold yellow letters and just moving on. Because ultimately what I felt back then was that people valued like what I had to say about certain charts. They valued what I had to say a lot more than just like the thumbnail that got them there in the first place. So in the short term, it's harder to grow because you're not getting the clickbait people. But in the long term, it's better because you attract the people that are more serious, and you attract the people that aren't going to leave when things go south, you know?
Yeah.
So clickbait attracts people that will immediately leave. And that's why you have certain channels that have a lot of followers, but when you look at their views, they're not really getting a whole lot of views because most of their followers were they were bought or achieved through very clickbaity things, and they're gone. So,
But I use this analogy. So thumbnails and your branding is more like the storefront. And how do you get people to come in first and then to see that my stuff is good? But yeah, like you said, there's a balance, and it's very hard for most people to find that balance.
well, and now I have AI thumbnails, right?
Yeah.
So had I had AI back then, I probably would have been using it. A lot of it was just me being lazy and not wanting to spend the time to create the thumbnail. But also, like when I was doing it back in 2019 and 2020, I mean, like I was working as a postdoc in at a national lab. Like I wasn't doing YouTube to grow a large audience. I was doing YouTube to just like express some ideas, and that was about it. Like I didn't think I would ever have, nearly 1 million subscribers. I never thought I'd have 10,000 subscribers. Like I didn't think people would find it interesting. And then that started to happen, and then AI kind of hit in like 2022 and ChatGPT, and then I started doing the AI thumbnail. So it's a good mix. But yeah, that's how I got started. Very slow growth at first, but then I think people valued the content.
Was it a very well thought out plan? You're like, I want to be boring, and this is how I attract these group of people, and then this is
I don't
how,
know. I mean, like I think I
does
was
it-
maybe more like playing checkers rather than chess about it
Right.
back then. It was like, all right, I'm not going to do the clickbait style because that's what everyone else is doing. I just want to be different, and this is one way that I can distinguish myself. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't.
That was when
2019.
2019.
Yeah.
And a lot of other channels
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. And then also, like, I saw a lot of people kind of complaining about all the clickbait and stuff. I was like, all right, well, I'll try to be different and see how it
see.
goes. Yeah. And for a long time, it didn't go well because no one could find my channel because I wasn't using clickbait stuff, Again, it took me 6 months to go from like 0 subscribers to 500. And I was posting, a video or two a week, and there was like no growth. And then at some point, everything changed. Like the algorithms picked me up.
Was it like depressing at first? Because I have friends that start new channels, and they would think it's embarrassing to tell people that, I'm starting to make content now with, let's say, 100 followers. They don't want to tell people they're doing this.
I still don't tell people.
But people know. People
But,
know you.
well, people at conferences know me, but like when I go home,
Oh, yeah.
people don't know me. I don't really get recognized hardly ever. Actually, the places I get recognized the most are like children's museums because I take my kids there, and then like their dads will often recognize me. Like other
Wow.
kids' dads will recognize me, or if I go on vacation, I'll get recognized. But that's about it. I don't really get recognized a whole lot.
Well, isn't it fun to share with people what you do, though?
I don't usually tell people.
At all.
No.
In real life.
I just say like I have my own company.
Okay.
And it's based around like quantitative finance.
And then people stop asking, right? Because it's too difficult.
Yeah, it's like saying like I'm an accountant. Like no one was like, all right, whatever, you do that. But then every once in a while, like I'll be with some friends, and then like someone will recognize me in public, and they're like, what's going on? Like
Yeah.
they'll have no idea. Like, and then, or like I'll be on a channel, and someone will recognize me, and they're like, wait, like I saw you on this channel, like
Yeah.
So that happens. I don't really go into public and try to convince people, because what happens is like you can never convince people to get in when they should, because like it's not cool to buy crypto when the prices are low, and so they'll ignore you, and then eventually they listen to you, but they listen to you, they'll be like, oh, they'll listen to you at a peak. So like they'll ignore you when they should have gotten in, they'll buy at a peak, and then they'll blame you after that for the next year. So there's really not like it's really not a great, it's like almost like a lose-lose scenario. So it's like people have to figure out for themselves this is what they want to do, and then take on their responsibility. I don't want to be the person out there trying to convince people, and then they buy the top and then they blame me. So I think that's one of the reasons why I kind of just shy away from it, because I used to try to convince people, and people love you for a very short period of time, and then they hate you for the bear market year, and then they sell, and then they wish they hadn't, and it's just a brutal cycle.
So what do you say to people when they ask you? If they know what you do, they will ask you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell them my honest opinion. Like, so if people ask me like now, like what they should do, I would say generally we're in a bear market, so like kind of just expect that for a little while, and like the winds will probably shift sometime next year, but we're not at that point yet, and also for the long term, like focus mostly on Bitcoin. Look at the valuation of altcoins against Bitcoin, not against the US dollar, because if you look at it against Bitcoin, you'll start to understand like why Bitcoin dominance matters and that kind of stuff. So that's what I generally tell people.
How do you motivate yourself to post every single day?
Yeah, I mean, the markets are always changing. Like some things going on in the market, right? Even though there's a bear market, there's always a bull market somewhere. It's like even yesterday I posted a video about silver, because I've been very bullish on commodities for a while, like gold, silver, palladium, uranium. I also like think that if I stop posting, then people are going to go somewhere else, So like I want to post because I know there's a lot of people that want to listen to what I have to say or just be updated about the markets in general. And it's easy to do. Like it doesn't take me a ton of time. Like I don't plan my videos. Like I'll be playing chess on my computer and I'll be like, all right, I guess I'll go make a video.
You're joking.
Yeah.
What?
No, yeah. I don't plan them at all. Like I get up, I go to my computer, and I'm like, all right, what I'm going to talk about, and then I look at the charts and I'm like, all right, I'll talk about this, and I record it, and then I post it all within about 20 minutes or so, because I don't edit them at all.
I know.
Yeah. So I just do that. It doesn't take a lot of time. It's mostly just about thinking about where the markets are going and trying to provide an opinion on it. When I get things wrong, trying to be as early as I can be about saying when I'm wrong, because the worst thing is if you're wrong, doubling down when you are wrong. That's the worst thing, So you have to be really willing to pivot when you are wrong. And I think that actually can distinguish a lot of people, like, certain creators from other creators, is like, especially if you're making predictions about financial markets, which the markets humble everyone. The people that I really respect the most that make predictions are the ones that will admit they're wrong about certain things. Because they're not trying to like pretend there's something they're not, Like, I mean, a lot of people say I get a lot of things right, and I mean, I think I've gone on a little, kind of like I got a lucky streak for the last couple of years or so. But the reality is, like, I do get things wrong, and I'll be wrong in the future, and we have to remind ourselves that like no one actually knows what's happening. Like I think we're in a bear market. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Bitcoin goes to new high, and if it does, like I'll be happy actually, because at least I held on to some of it, But yeah, I mean, I think the motivation to keep posting is to just be like, what, there's still people that are interested in what I have to say, so this is my job.
I heard somebody said the best way to build like a cult following is to stick to what you've said. Never admit you're wrong.
I disagree with that wholeheartedly, and I know a lot of people that do that. And honestly, like I know some people that do it that have been really successful, even politicians that never admit when they're wrong. And I don't know, like I don't agree with it. I think integrity is a big thing, and I think people respect when you are willing to admit you're wrong, because it kind of reminds you that, hey, like you're human, you're not perfect. They shouldn't think that you're perfect. They really shouldn't put you up on a pedestal. And I think I think if you never admit you're wrong, the people that follow you over a long enough period of time, like they'll realize what you're doing, and that will detract from your brand. So it's better to just admit you're wrong and take ownership of it.
Have you ever said something online that, you later realize it's wrong and then you apologized?
With financial markets, the first thing is no one knows what's going to happen, right? So like we're all going to get things wrong. I don't know if you have to, like I don't know if I have to apologize if I get things wrong, because like I'm already kind of saying up front, hey, like I could be wrong about this. But I think you have to admit that you're wrong. Like if you say something and it doesn't happen, you have to come out and be like, all right, I was wrong about that, rather than pretending like it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So, and the if I ever make shorter term predictions, those are more likely to be wrong than longer term predictions. So, and that happens more frequently. Like sometimes I'll branch out and be like, all right, this is what I think is going to happen in the short term. And those are more likely to be wrong, because in the short term, you could argue that markets follow geometric Brownian motion, like a random walk, which is completely unpredictable. So I don't really think you need to apologize for being wrong, but I think you need to admit when you are. Because there's people that really showed Luna a lot last cycle, and UST, and talking about that kind of stuff, or Celsius, or Voyager, or FTX, like all these different platforms. And I think if I think that's a good reason to sort of say, hey, I'm sorry, I was wrong, and then you move on. Like, it doesn't mean you can't recover from it, but if you don't ever admit you're wrong or apologize, I think you will lose like the trust of a lot of people. And it's so hard. Like it can be really hard to apologize. But I do think it's important in kind of like repairing relationships with the people that watch you.
You have to really use or really believe in what you use or promote.
Right. You have to do your due diligence. You have to believe in it. You can't just, because it's easy to take money. If you were financially incentivized to do that, if you were paid to do it, you are kind of taking on responsibility, right? I feel like it's hard to just be like, oh no, I don't have any responsibility. That's why I think it's more okay to, that's why it's more justified to apologize for those things. But if you're just providing an opinion that's not paid for, you're allowed to have an opinion. You're allowed to be wrong about things, We all be wrong.
We also talk about silver and metals and stuff.
Yeah.
How does that relate to crypto?
Well, I mean, there's just always a bull market somewhere. And I think, like, as content creators, like, the one thing that will never go away is people that want to invest and make money.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's crypto, commodities, stocks, bonds, whatever, money market account, T-bills, right? People always want to make money. And there's always a bull market somewhere. So when you're in a period like we've been in for the last year or so, where the crypto markets aren't really moving, there's only so many times I can say the same thing, or I'm like, all right, people get that Bitcoin has been at 100K for the last year, and they get that, yeah, maybe we're in a bear market, but like maybe they still have money they want to put somewhere. Maybe they don't want to put it in Bitcoin right now because they also believe it's a bear market. They want to put it somewhere else. So then that's why I talk about other things. Like there's a bull market somewhere at all times, and it's just figuring out where those bull markets are. To me, it doesn't matter if it's ticker ABC or DEF. Like, it doesn't matter. It's, why does it matter if you make 20% on Bitcoin versus silver or gold or uranium or Ethereum? Like, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's just you're making money. That's why, like, people will say, like, with the whole Bitcoin dominance, like, you're a toxic Bitcoin maxi, is what I heard. I was like, I'm just trying to preserve my wealth, right? And, like, I'd rather hold Bitcoin than it's like a micro cap altcoin for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
So it's not about being a maxi, it's just about preserving wealth over the long haul.
So from what you're saying, it is a bull market in silver.
Yeah, it's been a bull market in metals for a while. But I do think my general thought process is that metals will probably cool off a little bit in 2026. But I do think they'll continue to do well for the rest of the decade, is my guess. A lot of times metals are in like decade-long bull markets. Silver just broke through its prior all-time highs from like 2011. I could see it getting a pullback below those, back down in 2026. But ultimately, I think they will go higher as we go further on. And gold normally does well during exact market conditions like this, when especially pre-Fed printing, like with inflation and all that stuff, people flock to hard assets. And commodities are something that you can't just print. You can't just go print gold. You can mine more of it, right? You can do that, but you can't just go print it. And so that's one of the reasons why metals do well during times like this, and especially during times of uncertainty, because risk assets really hate uncertainty. And there's been a lot of uncertainty in the last year.
I find it very interesting that people have been talking about gold and metal, because to the younger generation, those are like the boring stuff, the old people stuff. But it's trendy again.
Well, it's because prices are going up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And while gold has these characteristics of being scarce and all that, it's been like that forever. Why is it only happening now?
Because gold went through a massive bull market in the 2000s. And so I was born in 1990. And so during the last major gold bull market, I was a kid, I was 10 years old when it started. And by the time it was over in 2011, I was 21. Like I wasn't really an investor. And so I think a lot of us are products of our experience. And so I graduated, I graduated undergrad in 2012. And so ever since I've really been investing, all we've ever known is that risk assets outperform commodities. Like we've seen Bitcoin outperform gold for forever, basically. And then you have people like Peter Schiff who are speaking, here at the conference who, you have to think like, why do they have these opinions? Like, why do they think that like commodities are where to be, and they can be wrong. I mean, they can be wrong for years and years and years. It doesn't mean they're always going to be wrong. And the reason they're so opinionated is the same reason that we are so opinionated about Bitcoin, is because we saw it go up for a decade, more than a decade. He's seen gold go up in the 2000s. He probably also saw it go up in the 70s and the 80s when we had inflationary, issues. So he knows that it's only a matter of time before gold outperforms risk assets. Like he knows it's only a matter of time, and that's why he can sit up there and say very confidently it's going to happen. And as long as he has at least a 10-year time horizon, like he's going to eventually be right. So I think that's one of the reasons. I think a lot of people have a hard time, especially my age, kind of like accepting that commodities are in the bull market and crypto's in a bear, is because like they've never really seen that environment. Yeah. But it doesn't mean those environments never exist. They do exist, and it's exactly that type of environment that will then make those people probably a little bit more diversified in the future. And then they'll be like the old people that are like, oh, why do you have to have gold in the port? Trying to convince the younger generation of like, diversifying somewhat. So I'm trying to like, I can look at a chart and look at Bitcoin and be like, all right, it generally goes up and to the right. But I can also look at gold and see that every 20, 30 years it has a massive bull market. And I don't want to just sit here and ignore it just because it's like, something that only old people own. I'd rather kind of like respect what the data says. And if I think gold's going to go up, then I want it in my portfolio.
People can argue that we have a new form of gold. So the history is not going to repeat itself.
You talking about Bitcoin?
Yes.
Yeah, I disagree with that. Like Bitcoin trades like a risk asset. It does not trade like a risk-off asset. It never has. Maybe it will at some point, but it's never traded as a risk-off asset. It's traded like a levered version of the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ's up over 100%. Bitcoin went up like 700% since 2022. That's why Bitcoin drops a lot more in bear markets, because it goes up a lot more in bull markets. It's not a bad thing that Bitcoin is a risk-on asset, because over the long haul, risk assets tend to do better. There's more times of risk-on environments than risk-off environments, right? So you'll have periods where gold outperforms, but there's longer periods where stocks outperform and risk assets outperform. So it's not a bad thing that Bitcoin is a risk-on asset. It does not trade like gold at all. And you look at the last year. Like, if Bitcoin traded like gold, it would be up a lot more. Yeah. Because gold's up a lot. Bitcoin's down. So, that's kind of clear evidence that they're not really correlated, and they're inversely correlated over, probably longer periods of time. It depends on what you're looking at. If you look at it from when Bitcoin started to now, like they've both gone up. So, in a sense that you could say they're positively correlated, but over certain time frames, like risk off versus risk on, like there's times where they're completely they're negatively correlated, where one goes up, the other goes down.
I think you're right about us never seeing gold outperform these stocks and like Bitcoin and stuff. So it is very hard for us to understand, which leads to people saying that during very scary moments in the world, like in the history, something bad, really bad has to happen for these, gold, silver to go up. And people are expecting something really bad is going to happen soon. What is your view?
I think there's still some runway for the AI stuff. I don't know exactly when the music's going to stop. It probably will stop at some point. It's a natural progression of the business cycle. I could see a scenario where Powell is replaced as chair. They put someone in, they lower rates, they reignite the animal spirits. Like, that's possible. That could even lead to attention back on crypto, maybe in 2027, 2028 timeframe. But eventually, I think they will have to face the music of like, you can't just lower rates and print money to solve our problems forever, because if you do, the bond vigilantes are going to come back. They're like, rates are going to go up. Long end rates are going to go up. I think at some point over the next like 2 to 3 years, the music will stop. and there will be a big crash, but I also think it's like a complete fool's errand to try to time that. Like you can't time it. It's not worth trying to time. Most people just make fools of themselves trying to time it. So I think for now, for me, for crypto in general, like I'm just going to stick to this cycle behavior, and eventually it'll break. And when it breaks, I'll admit I'm wrong. But until that time, just if it's not broke, don't fix it. It's like the 4-year cycle is not even unique to Bitcoin. If you look at the stock market in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s, it was a 4-year cycle. There were major lows in the stock market in 1966, 1970, 74, 78, and 82. Every 4 years, there was a major low. And then you would have gone into 86 thinking, all right, we're going to have a major low in 86. And then we didn't. We ended up having it in 87 instead. So you could argue the 4-year cycle has existed before Bitcoin.
Why?
It could be based on presidential cycles.
Ah, right.
If Bitcoin's halvings had been put in midterm years instead of election years, like, you know, we probably would have seen completely different moves. Like Bitcoin maybe would have bottomed around the halving, and then we would have said, oh, it bottoms always at the halving instead of being halfway through a bull market in the halving. So I think that's the reason. But I do think the 4-year cycle will break eventually. I'm just not going to be the person calling for it to. You know, like when it breaks, and then we kind of adjust our views. But until that time, I think if it's not broke, don't fix it, and you're going to be right more often than you're going to be wrong.
Ben, thank you so much for being on the show. By the way, you look amazing today. This is the first time
I don't dress up very frequently.
Who made you do this?
I did it myself, believe it or not.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
It matches your eye color and everything.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here as always.